I think we're live at this point. So I want to thank everybody for joining tonight. We are in the 2021 season, episode 4 playlist of the Oklahoma Sooners football. I'm the OU flag guy, and I want to thank Oni Kuno for joining me tonight. Oni Kuno, how are you doing tonight? Doing good, okay?
I'm peachy. I'm wearing my laziest of shirts right now.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's Sunday night, and it's a very thin white cotton T-shirt that you can purchase at your local Walmart. So I'm in very casual wear tonight.
The casual Sooner wear?
I mean, not really. Not outside of the hat. I mean, I was thinking of buying some OU Jordan brand shorts, but I don't like paying $50 for shorts that I'm just going to wear around the house. So that's just me.
You're telling me you're not going to go line up at the spring sale next year just to get it?
I mean, that's different. If I was there and they're all on, they're on clearance type of sale, that's sure. I'm sure you can get them not MSRP price or whatever. But that's definitely something I consider if I lived locally, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, we had people lining up at least, probably 3 days before they were camping out for it. And I think a lot of it's because they didn't have it in the 2020 year. But even then, people wanted those jerseys and the Air Jordans, everything like that.
You too can get players' jerseys who are no longer on the team for stupid reasons and various others.
Oh, you could get your favorite kicked off player jersey. I think that'd be great. Gavin's joined us. Gavin, how are you this evening?
Fine, other than having some major technical difficulties on my other end, so I had to basically go find another PC and basically use that. So camera's not working, so you're just going to basically hear my voice for tonight.
Oh, that's fine. As long as you're here tonight, hey, we appreciate it. So tonight I was going to have a K-State fan and a Utah fan on to talk about kind of what their feelings were about the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and the rest of college football's reaction to OU and Texas. But they unfortunately could not be on tonight, so they sent me some notes on what they wanted me to bring up. But otherwise, it's been a pretty crazy week this past week with it. We kind of discussed it last stream of OU and Texas moving to the SEC, but Friday made it official that OU and Texas are officially there, and the rest of college football just kind of has to deal with it at this point. I guess I'll start with Gavin. We're there. We're starting in the SEC, and I know they said that it's going to be 2025, but everybody knows it's going to be 2022 probably. So I guess my question is why do you think it went so fast? Why do you think they wanted to get this out of the way in 9 days?
I think if anything too, this has kind of been where I've been so torn on this. As far as from what I understood though too, and I've kind of been keeping up with all of that, there was a lot of what you said, the backdoor chapter. I mean, even I remember, Sean, you said something earlier, though, too, somebody, had to get that story out, though, too, and it was especially in front with A&M and everything. I just think this was just more to where I think OU was, basically fed up, because ever, for the last couple of years being in the conference. And I think they just kind of, had the last straw on the camel's back, just basically broke after that OU Nebraska ish situation, I think, in my opinion. But I feel like if anything else, it's where were they going to go, basically in this conference? Because I feel like we were already plateaued enough, and I just kind of seeing it from everywhere all around. It's if you look at besides just football and some of the other sports, like wrestling and gymnastics, I mean, you basically have Air Force, North Dakota State, and some of these other schools that were kind of being in on that as well, though, too. I know Texas, I don't know if they have a wrestling program. Forgive me because I don't know much about it, though, too. But it was it was just more to where it just didn't really have basically the firepower to where it was basically the running joke of all of the other Power Fives, and basically it's just basically OU, Texas, and everyone else. And I just think if anything, it was just sort of where I think everybody was just sort of fed up. I did see. I keep trying to find that. what's the OSU's president's name? That I just remember though too that she basically started her term and everything, and she's been pretty much been fired up for the most part. About the OU leaving for the most part. I think she put out something earlier, from what I understood. But anyway.
I forgot her name, but yeah, she put out a statement, I think it was Friday, where that she was saying she was very disappointed in OU going to the SEC. But then, if I recall, she put a second statement out that was basically, why isn't OU working hand in hand with OSU and just following Texas to the SEC? And that just seems like a lot of whining and griping at this point, that they think we owe them something. And what it comes down to is OU does not owe OSU or anybody else in the conference anything. That they are separate institutions. They are not attached at the hip. I cracked the joke to some of my coworkers where I said, if OSU wants to come with OU to the SEC, then merge the schools, make the University of Oklahoma at Stillwater campus, and then everybody wins. They didn't respond to that very well. They were very unhappy to hear that. But that's where we're at that point. And to me, if they don't like that, they don't basically have to have OU to make their athletics very, very sustainable, they've got a problem with that. And I think, Sean, you even mentioned that as well, if OU doesn't owe them anything. They don't owe anybody in the conference anything.
Yeah, it's a shame that OU is shutting down the Stillwater Rec Center like that. I mean,
it's so sad.
We're such villains.
I know, right?
The narrative that OU is following Texas to the SEC is, you can spin it however you want. It seems like they're going together. It's not like one school announced and then a month later the other one, made a phone call and said they were joining. It seems like one was not going to go without the other. So you could try to say who initiated conversation or how this went. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So, it's Oklahoma State's turn to bitch and whine, and they're going to continue to do so because a lot of people who are, in charge are trying to, make themselves look good in front of their constituents and, donors and screaming loud enough to make it sound like that they can actually do something about this. And the truth of the matter is they can't. But at the end of the day, it's like Oklahoma State, they have a right to be upset. I'm not going to sit here and say they don't. It really was kind of a shitty thing to do. But when you look at the response and the reaction to all of this, you can understand why Oklahoma didn't tell anybody, why they didn't give them a heads up, because, there was this talk and narrative out there about, we're joined at the hip with Oklahoma State, and someone's going to bring up back in 1910 they made an agreement. It's like, that's a wonderful I don't know where you got that, or I don't know how that holds up legally or whatever, but it's the same thing about A&M talking about the gentleman's agreement or the gentleman's handshake that the SEC wouldn't do business with any other Texas schools and bring them into the conference, but oh wait, we're going to go for the biggest one and it's going to make us all a lot of money. And I think the problem for a lot of these schools in the Big 12, especially Oklahoma State, is that they're looking into the mirror and having to, accept the hard reality is they're not as worth as much as they think they are. Or they're going to be worth something to somebody, but on the biggest level, when the way college sports is heading, I mean, I hate to break the bad news, but all the way everyone is acting. The sad part is they're validating the, fair or not, the quote-unquote little brother status. They don't match up with Oklahoma on nearly everything. And you can pull out your wrestling records and golf championships or whatever you want all day long. Football drives the bus. And to some extent basketball, but Kansas will find a home, I'm sure. But listen, Oklahoma State will find a home somewhere. If you listen, I keep saying this, you can find a home in a Power 5 league, you better jump on it. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's Pac-12, ACC, Big 10. If you can do it, you better grab it, because whether you have to partner up with some of these other Big 12 schools that are looking for a home, just whatever you got to do. But right now, I mean, there's rumors that they're going to try to stay together and try to get like Navy and Air Force to join. You know,
Good luck.
I mean, I don't know. Just like, I mean, it would be like you would then have 3, you know, triple option schools in the league, you know, because that's what Kansas is moving to. But yeah, at the end of the day, you know, I'm gonna keep on, you know, hammering home that, you know, listen, if you're West Virginia, Kansas, or whoever, if you can find a home elsewhere, go get it, because at this point, you're just patching up a boat that has holes in it that's gonna sink one day, and you don't want to be the one who's not on a lifeboat. Someone made a joke to me today about how Oklahoma and Texas were got into a lifeboat. You know, they tried to get on. They were one of the last ones to jump off the Titanic into a lifeboat. It's like, actually, I would disagree. They were the first ones to get in a lifeboat, and everyone thought they were crazy and stupid. But they got picked up. They made it to New York. They didn't sink. Mm-hmm. So,
okay, you know. Okay, I did find it. Dr. Casey Schrum, basically the OSU. This is what she put out earlier today, and this is what it says. I quote: "This past week brings a whole new meaning to #loyal and true. Thank you, Oklahoma State fans, for shouting out what we already knew. OSU athletics is a top contender in the landscape of college athletics and academics. We celebrate Cade Cunningham's #1 NBA draft pick, and the Cowboy football program is one of 3 Power 5 schools with a 15-season winning streak, thanks to Coach Gundy and his staff. While this time is uncertain in college sports, I view this time as an opportunity. OSU is charting off for a bright future, and will necessarily take the time considering the best path forward, working with the Big 12. Many have asked about future Bedlam. We enjoy the tradition whenever we play OU in any sport. Right now, there are too many unknowns to determine what the future holds. Their athletic program is strong across the board, and I respect our dedication and hard work of student athletes in the classroom and the sports. Be assured we will move to purpose, always honoring the principles we live by, the Cowboy Code, and doing what is right, even when it's hard. Go Pokes," in quotes. We'll
save the rec center. We're gonna have a fundraiser.
Is it going to be a pizza fundraiser? Going to be a car wash? What type of fundraiser are we having?
I don't know, but like they better get those cookies that Marge Simpson makes, or else they're not going to be able to break even like they did before.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the season ticket sales look like every other year when you can't force everyone to buy season ticket packages for one game. So, you know who doesn't have to do that? They don't have to do that. Although Oklahoma season ticket sales will probably start going through the roof soon based on our new conference schedule coming up in probably 2022.
You know, I mentioned that to you in your stream, Sean, I'm curious of when they're saying, "Dear such and such, thank you for being a valuable member. With us moving to the SEC, we really want to improve on that press box, meaning we need to raise ticket prices."
Well, I have a sneaking suspicion that certain oil tycoons will look under the mattress and understand, like, oh, look at that! I had a few $1 million just under there the whole time. That's where I put that extra $1 million. Don't you just hate it when you put your jeans in the washer and you leave $1 million in your back pocket like that? Just happens to everybody.
Man, I wish that happened to me. The most I get is receipts.
Yeah.
If that's shredded wet, everything. Yeah.
But I once found a $20 bill and just wadded up in like an old one of my old OU like winter coats years ago, because I was just like going through. I was like, here's all this, and I just going through the pocket. I felt like I had $20 here the whole time. What the hell was I doing? I just left it in there. So free $20. Found the prize.
Go out for food.
Actually, back when I found that, I probably really did need that $20. So I was like, yes, $20. Thank God I could. But yeah, I mean, Oklahoma State's like having they'll get through it. They'll figure it out. And then when they realize that, if the roles were reversed, they would have done the exact same thing. And I'm sure Doug got nothing makes me smile more than seeing Doug Gottlieb melt down for once. Got smarmy little prick, and now he's just like finger wagging Oklahoma. Like it's just makes me smile on such a personal level. I just love seeing that whiny little bitch just like being kept up at night. So
I mean, that is something that I wanted to mention too. I want to circle back to some of the schools later, but I was going to say, who's been kind of the biggest whiner in all this? Doug, Kirk Herbstreit, or
Herbstreit's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I really watched. I looked at the deal on 24/7 OK Sports and stuff like that with Herbstreit. It was just more of a traditionalist view. I've heard I've kind of been looking at other responses and everything. I looked at a Discord server that I'm in though too. There was a lot of people that were not thrilled about it because they're mostly what they're called quote traditionalists, and these are and I'm not getting it, some of them that are 18, 19 years old though too, that did not do not like it whatsoever though too, with the realignment whatsoever, which to me that was kind of very surprising to me.
Look over it.
I guess I know Herbstreit. I mean, I know he wasn't whining, but at the same time, I just don't get why he threw out all those comments and acting just so naive about it, not realizing the guy who signs his paychecks was kind of at fault at this, and this is the system. I just don't see how he did not. I think this is the second or third time that he has said, I don't understand.
I think he understands that. I think he's just. We all get attached into our ways and the way and stuff, and I'm from my point of view, I can't speak for either of you, but my point of view, I've seen traditions for Oklahoma peel away one by one over the years, and so I'm used to seeing us have to adapt and change with the times, and so I'm more than ready to adapt to the SEC. I'm not scared to go in there, for various reasons. It's a lot easier to try to conquer an empire from within than without, because you actually get to play them every week. I love this idea. It's you can't beat them, join them. No, we're joining them so we can beat them. We're not going to lock arm in arm like an Ohio State entrance onto the football field and we ain't here to play that chanting SEC and root for it. We got to root for the teams in the Outback and in the Capital One Bowl. That's not what we're doing. So I'm looking forward to compete against other guys, but yeah, we don't play Nebraska anymore. That was the oldest tradition that everyone looked forward to. The Big 8 and all that stuff is gone. The fun. We're gonna play A&M again, I guess, but that was only a kind of a temporary tradition anyway. But it's winning the Big 8, going to the Orange Bowl. The only tradition we have left is playing Texas.
No. We have a tradition left, Sean. Besides that, we have a tradition. It's a pay-per-view game once a year.
No, that's going away too. So but this is the last year that's going to happen if we play in the SEC next year, because we'll be on the SEC network for our crappy body bag games or whatever, or ESPNU. But no, if someone told me a year ago, listen, next year you got a shot with Texas, you're going to go to the SEC for it'd be the team number 15 and 16, and it's going to give you a shot in the arm, and you're going to be welcomed with open arms. People are going to hate on Texas, but they're going to love you guys more than they're going to love, this and this, that. But the one sacrifice, the Big 12 is going to probably implode or whatever, but the one sacrifice you're going to have to make, you can't play Oklahoma State anymore. It's I'll raise my hand quicker than anything. Oh no, I can't play Oklahoma State anymore. The team that we've beaten 90 times at this point, the one major in-state rivalry in this country that we were gonna get to win number 100 before anyone else. So like I said, by all means, whine and cry, talk about how you're the ones who blaming us how it's not going to happen, when I love our new president. That's my president at Oklahoma, because on Friday I listened to that whole damn meeting, and he said a couple important things. Number one, he laid out, when we signed this media agreement, it was with the old Big 12. Hint, I'm paraphrasing, but he really he wanted you to make sure you knew that. I'm oh, he's laying groundwork for this, for all this legal stuff. This media agreement was with the old Big 12. The other thing he says, he made it very clear that we want to keep playing Oklahoma State publicly. So everyone heard from his mouth and Joe C's mouth that we want to continue to play Oklahoma State. They put all their cards on the table. So if this thing doesn't happen, however it does go down, it's going to be the Pokes' fault. So if you don't want to find time at the end of the year, whatever conference you're playing in, to make room on a rivalry weekend when all the in-state rivalries are going on with the Iron Bowl, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina, and so forth. If you don't want to make that happen, that's on you. If you want to have hurt feelings, everything, that's not going to bother us any, because we're going to be just fine. We don't need to force people to buy season ticket packages for one football game.
And Gavin,
we don't have to do that.
No, and Gavin, that's something you brought up too with the president's statement with it, that they said it's going to be uncertain. The ball's in their court, and it sounds like they don't want to do it. That they're going to be bitter enough to not want it.
And that's kind of it's kind of a very interesting point though too. I mean, it's like I feel like with OU and Texas in this sort of standpoint too, and look, I know Texas hasn't won a Big 12 in nearly a decade though, so I'm going to put that aside. But the problem I have though, it's like, I've kind of looked at it to where it's pretty much been plateaued probably since, I don't know, since maybe 2012, 2013 as a conference as a whole. It feels like, in a sense, for me personally, because it's like, it's like you've already proven enough to where, yes, you win the conference so many times over the years, and both OU and Texas have pretty much put in their whole weight of the program. But as for the other 8 that were basically in there, I mean, you might have TCU maybe won it. I think TCU and Kansas State and Baylor, I think each winning them once, during that span. But then other than that, it's been mostly Oklahoma at the standpoint. So it's like for the conference as a whole, you might have a few teams that were good here and there. But as far as from a consistency standpoint, from a conference as a whole, it was hard to basically gain that sort of respect, especially within that sort of SEC caliber talent, too, with Florida, Georgia, LSU, that have always been competitive year in and year out. And, it's it's hard basically being, the top dog and the basically sort of in that lower bracket tier and everything. And I think if anything, and I kind of look at this whole issue, basically from the old issue, from looking at from an old standpoint with an iron sharpening iron standpoint, I think if anything, the iron is starting to get very dull in the Big 12, and I think the using that iron in the SEC would probably be helping out from more of a competitive standpoint. And you can talk about with the the college football playoff expansion going to 12 teams. It's going to happen sooner or later. I mean, it's going to take a long time or anything. No, it's going to happen sooner or later than you think. And I think if anything, OU's wanting to get ahead of that game. They can put themselves in a prime position instead of, where they're at now. They would win the conference and all that, but how they would be seated wise and everything, they would probably get themselves kicked out or something like that from an earlier standpoint.
Well, and that's something you have to think about. And I talked to my friend Andrew about this, and we both came to the conclusion, Red Dirt Sport also had to follow it up. A lot of the fans from the other schools are kind of in denial on how this got to this point, and a lot of them want to just outright blame Texas, which, I mean, look, if Texas wants to be our body bag and our meat shield for all the criticism, hey, more power to them. But we basically came to that conclusion, though, they don't realize that Bourne in Texas did, and to an extent, Oklahoma State tried to keep the conference together. They tried to solidify and add long-term stability, except all these schools decided to take short-term games for it, and that's kind of where we're at this point. It's the same thing right now, where these schools want to take, the grant of rights money instead of, taking deals with better Power 5 conferences at this point, and it's going to bite them in the butt. I mean, let's be honest with Oklahoma State. From every fan that I've talked to, well, we hope we get picked up because of the rich wrestling tradition. We hope we get picked up because of horseback riding on or ice skating on horseback riding kind of thing. That's great. I'm proud of y'all that y'all have a tradition that y'all can rally around. That's not paying the bills, guys. You got to move to somewhere that's people got to care about. And as we put it, go ahead. I
was going to say, no one gives a shit about wrestling. I'm sorry. They just don't.
They don't.
I mean, I'm not saying nobody does, but like we're gonna add you to. I mean, they'll give you partial membership for that type of stuff. That's what they do, but they're not going to give you. Oh, we got to get that amateur Olympic style wrestling program. No one cares. They really
No
don't.
one don't. And let's be honest, Sean. Let's be honest. The two schools that actually do care about it is Oklahoma State and OU. That's kind of it. The rest just they need it as a program.
Wrestling is big in the Big Ten. Like that's what they care about in the Big Ten. I mean, the SEC doesn't have wrestling programs, so I don't know for the Oklahoma wrestling program. Maybe they might do partial membership elsewhere. I don't know. Like that's something else they'll figure out down the road. But I mean, but yeah, this like I really do believe that like the Big 12 as a whole. I mean, West Virginia and TCU were new to the team a few years back, but there's a lot of people who had that mindset of the old Big 12, even with Nebraska, Colorado, A&M, Missouri leaving. There was this mindset that they had like back in 2001, and they thought like the SEC in a sense that the SEC doesn't have to add. They don't have to go out and grab Cincinnati, BYU, Houston, Memphis. They don't have to do that. They don't have to do those things. The Big 12, like it was, and I think to an extent, OU and Texas didn't want them either, but they on some level they understood, at least Oklahoma and David Bourne, that they had to listen. We can play the 10-team card all we want, but Bourne tried. He really did. He wanted who were they were going after Cincinnati and Houston. Those were the two that he was really pushing for. And it got to a point where I think they got Texas and Tech on board along with Oklahoma to add Houston. Like it was getting kind of close, but guess what? The other 7 said no. So Boren tried. He tried multiple times. You know this, Josh. You were there. You were a student. You heard all that stuff too.
100%. They had the Pac-12 logo on the field.
He tried. So, and maybe, and at some point he had to throw his hands up and give us like, all right, we'll do a grant of rights, and we'll do what's. I think a decision was made by Bourne at that point in the back of his head. All right, here's a grant of rights, and we'll wait about 10 years or however long, and then we'll see where the landscape is, and we'll get out. Bourne, for health got to him, and he stepped down, and we got a new president. But this, by the way, this move doesn't happen if Bourne's still president. I tell you.
Oh, 100%.
This does not happen if he's still in charge. And
because it was leaked. Wasn't it that the new president does not like being in the Big 12?
Well, there's that, but I'm just saying from all due respect to Bourne and all the good and bad he's done for OU, because we can, that's a whole different topic of he loved to pump. Bourne wanted OU to be as close to an Ivy League school as possible, and he really was shooting for the Big Ten, really wanted to get that Big Ten prestige.
OU is number 1 in those national merits.
What the hell is a national merit scholar anyway? Nobody knew what that was. All I remember is that little ad they had, and you had the football player, the ballerina. We saw that little ad a million times during football games back in the day.
But, I know that one. That always did crack me up because my old roommate Patrick was a national merit. Is like, what is it? I don't know. It's just a full ride. Okay. And then they would go, now guys, remember.
It's a fancy name for something.
Yeah, it's basically the equivalent of a full ride for academics. That's all it is. And they don't even get the swag.
I mean, that's great. But they would pump that up and everything. But no, this doesn't happen if Bourne's in charge, all due respect. And I mean, he spent a lot of money when he was president of OU, maybe a little too much money at times. But I didn't even realize how much we were in debt. Sorry. Like I didn't even realize it. But I think they're gonna make it back because this new TV contract that the SEC will get is gonna be north of $1 billion. So get ready for that, or it's eventually going to get there if it's not going to be already. This is going to be a $1 billion TV deal.
$1 billion?
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be more, but if it's not, it's going to be close. If it will get there at some point.
I was hearing I was somehow thought it was going to be near the $3 billion mark, is from what I understood.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, I don't know about 3. That's a lot for college. I mean, I was like, I don't know. What's the NFL's TV deal with Fox and CBS and NBC? I mean, maybe you combine all those, but I mean, ESPN is going to be the sole, TV provider for the Southeastern Conference, like very, very soon, like starting in 23. So you want to see content, you have one destination, or the ESPN networks, because CBS next season in 22 is going to be their last year. There's talks that there's a possibility ESPN may buy out that last year. I kind of hope they don't, because if we do play in 2022, I just want 1 year on. I just want to get that CBS game with OU Texas just one time, just once, just to get that theme music one time. And well, yeah, just I feel bad for the other 8 schools on some level. TCU is the one I kind of feel bad for most, because Gary Patterson, they all built up that program. They got to a Power 5 status. Now, unless like someone else wants to take them in, they're going to lose that status. And everything I hear, it's like Pac-12 isn't in a hurry to add anybody just because. See, that's the scary part, because this thing kind of like popped up out of nowhere for a lot of people, because this whole deal didn't just happen in a week. It's been building for like 6-7 months, and we can point to various moments over the past 6-7 months where maybe the decision was already made privately, but there were certain moments where that just reaffirmed the decision, which we won't get into. But I just, the problem is, it's like the Big Ten doesn't really need to do anything right now. People say, "Oh, the Big Ten should do this, this, and that." I mean, Big Ten's going to be fine. Like, no one's in a hurry to leave the Big Ten. I know there's all these rumors flying out there. Like this is the part of this whole deal that drives me nuts. It's because people lose their minds because they hear, "Oh, this is what it could boom, 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 boom. We're going to turn it. It's going to this. It's going to become 2 mega conferences. One's going to absorb the other." It's like, everyone slow down. Like, we're at part 1 of this. There is nothing that's going to top this move individually. Mind you, there is no individual move for a school to go to another one, unless Ohio State and Michigan just say, "F the Big Ten, we're leaving," which is not going to happen. They're talking about USC is going to leave and join the Big Ten. It's like, I'm not ready to jump on that horse yet. I think it's a little premature to go there, because everyone's like been blindsided by this. I think everyone's going to take a step back, take a breath, and get their shit together, and just trying to figure out what the next move is. Like, people are like, so many like, this is a fan thing, and I understand why fans feel this way. Fans are like saying Notre Dame's got to join a conference. Notre Dame's got to join a conference. They got to do it. It's like, no one's forcing Notre Dame to join a conference. Like, until the landscape forces them to, which as of right now, they don't have to make a move. I mean, their individual TV deal is okay for one team, but I think the money is going to get big enough where they're going to have to consider it. But for Notre Dame, it's like Notre Dame doesn't change their mind or make big changes unless there's a literal gun to their head. Like, historically, like Notre Dame didn't play in bowl games for 4 years. Why? Because they care about winning the national championship more than anything, because they don't play in a conference. So national title or bust. A national title was awarded by the AP and coaches, or UPI, before the bowl games. Guess what big change happened in the late 60s, early 70s? They started awarding those championships after bowl games. And guess who started playing in bowl games? The Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So, yeah. and guess who beat Alabama in a Sugar Bowl? The Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So, yeah, you start all of a sudden in the 70s, hey, Notre Dame's in bowl games now. What a shock. Who would have thunk it? So you kind of have to force their hand. And last year was kind of a moment for the ACC. They could have put a gun to their head and said, "Oh, you need to play with the ACC this year in conference so you can play football because you're an independent and all your games are canceled." I mean, you could join us this year, but you better make it permanent. Swafford didn't do it, of course, because he knew that would sour relations with them. But that was a moment. You really could have held a gun to their head and said, "Well, you need to make this a permanent move." But they didn't do that. So now Notre Dame is back in their part-time ACC mode, where unless unless they're surrounded by all this change and it forces them to, like, unless you make it a point in this new playoff where you have to be a member of a conference or this or that or whatever, like, they're not going to change. So they're gonna hold on to that independence with the death grip as long as possible. But again,
then they don't have to show that money.
Yeah, but again, the problem is they would probably make more money if they joined the Big Ten or joined the ACC or whatever. Their money would go up because this whole NBC, get 6 games a year type of deal. It's kind of like old news at this point. It's like it's an old pair of shoes that's worn out and your toes are sticking out at the end. So it's not it's not as special as it was in the early 90s when Notre Dame turned their backs on the CFA that was supposed to get one major big deal for everybody, and they went behind everyone's backs and did the NBC thing. But again, outside of that, there are no major moves. Like West Virginia going to the ACC is nice. It renews a rivalry with Virginia Tech. It's not going to change. It's not going to have the same shockwave effect as this. Since like the Big 12, if they we're going to add Cincinnati or Memphis, or it was like, okay, you're basically going to, this is what's going to, you're either going to become a G5 conference, you're either going to join a G5 conference, or a handful of you who are smart can get into the Power 5 club still. And I just don't foresee, there is no way they're going to keep their status because no one has been good enough, long enough in that conference to, be deemed worthy. It sucks when Oklahoma is dominating your league in football that much because, Texas hasn't really done so either. But again, they're a brand. They're smart. They know their worth. Everyone else, It's like you're just. Unfortunately, it sucks to be you. Nothing personal, but.
Well, that's something you brought up with the other conferences and stuff too. Do you think that they were running scared by saying that they want to put a pause on even expanding the 12-team playoff? Because I think it was the Big Ten.
That's all bullshit.
It is.
it's all bull. I don't buy that for a second. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to not expand the 12-team playoff.
Yeah. Oh, I think we lost Gavin.
Okay. Well, he'll be back, I'm sure.
He'll be back.
But you're going to not expand it to 12-team playoff right now. Okay. Well, if you're an Oklahoma fan, 2 weeks ago, you'd be pissed. 2 weeks later, who cares? You're in the SEC. Because guess what? If you want to keep it at 4, that's fine with me. Because if we do well enough in the SEC on an annual basis, we get all the credit in the world. We get 4 little words that I've been wanting for a very long time. It's been a while. Benefit of the doubt. 4 little words are going to be part of our vocabulary when people are talking about us if we do well enough in the SEC from here on out. Benefit of the doubt. You can call it SEC bias, you can call it whatever you want, but that's important at the end of the day if you're in a 4-team playoff.
Right.
And if you want to keep it at a 4-team playoff, when the tide has turned, things have changed, I'm cool with it at this point. If you want to, this is a Pac-12 problem. This is an ACC problem if your name is not Clemson. And by the way, Clemson better win that game against Georgia because they need it way more than Georgia needs it this year. If you're the Big Ten, Ohio State, you can't lose to Purdue on the road by 4 touchdowns. That hurt them. So, but Oklahoma can lose a game to South Carolina, lose a heartbreaker to LSU in overtime, and still find a way to win their division or pod or whatever, make it to the championship game, win, and still be a part of this. Because you will get this thing called benefit of the doubt.
Oh, those quality losses, right?
Those quality, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but and I'm gonna roll my eyes a lot at this stuff, but listen, go ahead and keep it at 4 and see what happens. But trust me, like this whole, we may have to make a pause. Yeah, you're gonna pause on all that money you're gonna make under a new contract. Yeah, go ahead and wait till 20. Go ahead and wait this contract out.
Do you think it's going to be something that they're just waiting for it to breathe for a moment before they're like, all right, how do we approach this?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like everyone's trying to get their shit together. It's like no one's gonna pause this thing. Like everyone is like. There is no way that you're not going to have a system set up where the Pac-12 conference champion is pretty much guaranteed a bid in this thing now. There's not a chance in hell. You want just despite money or anything, if USC is 10-2 and wins the Pac-12, you want them in the playoff. Like, you do not want anyone else. You do not want the committee to nitpick their schedule if the Pac-12 has a down year, if Oregon sucks, if UCLA is garbage. Who is your best win? An 8-4 Colorado? Ooh, not looking good. You don't want to have that scenario. Oklahoma now, we don't have to worry about that scenario ever again. It's gone. I don't have to come on screen where I'm at right now and say, look, Oklahoma did this, this, and this, and literally beg, please, sir, can we have some more? We don't have to do that crap anymore, and it's wonderful because 9-win teams are getting this playoff at some point. It's going to happen, and we all need to change our mindset on that because, some people are trying to figure out, there's 9-win team in the playoff. Like, there's 9-win teams in the top 12 all the time. 9 to 10 win teams, and it's like, oh man, if so and so hadn't gotten hurt, or if they didn't find themselves till mid-October, there's all these excuses or all these reasons you could say a football team wasn't playing well in September that they were at the end of the year. Look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma was trash at the beginning of the year. They were not all aligned. You get to early December, late December, they're firing on all cylinders. That's one of the most dangerous teams in America last year. Wish we played against A&M. That would have been a fun matchup. But
God, I cannot wait to play A&M.
Oh yeah, they have every right to be scared. That's why they're chirping so much. They're scared.
Which is funny because they voted. I think the SEC, the president pulled them to the side and said, "Guys, you're voting yes for this. You're not going to embarrass us."
Yeah. They told them to STFU and just deal with it. And you can either vote no and see what happens down the road when you want something else to go your way.
Yeah, because they already publicly embarrassed them. Gavin, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to come back to that SEC deal, and according from the New York Times, that deal that is supposed to take effect though for that $3 billion revenue and everything was actually supposed to be in 2024. Which, supposed contract was supposed to be in 2025 whenever they start within the deal. So if anything, I know they're going to try and get in there earlier about that. But I was also going to say too, that whole issue with that, 9-10 wins, will help probably get you in though too. It's going to be basically sort of like its own, basically the minor NFL before the NFL. It just is going to feel with the whole conference joining in, if anything, though, too. I'm just sort of seeing it as that because it's I'm just trying to remember how many players have come out of the SEC in general, leading into the NFL. I mean, I'm just looking at it right now, and it's mostly been predominantly SEC players that are mostly playing in the NFL right now.
Well, yeah, and we don't have to, because Oklahoma has been leading the way with NFL draft picks for the Big 12, and that's another how many times have we had to isolate ourselves from the Big 12 when it comes to the NFL draft? It's the Big 12 doesn't only put so many players in there. Yeah, but how many players did we put in as opposed to individual? We're always comparing ourselves individually to a conference. That was always the tough thing. That was the most frustrating thing of all. As an Oklahoma fan, I always touted Oklahoma. I always try, because we're one of the few programs in the country who can do that. The whole SEC pride thing, it's listen, all our stuff's going to get lumped in there now. Everyone, we're adding 7 Natties, 7 Heismans, conference titles, all Americans, NFL draft picks, you name it. All that's going to be lumped into the big, ball of clay that is the SEC. But only and listen, every school has their own thing they do. LSU is DBU, or Florida Gate, or was it the Florida Gators or DBU or whatever? But Alabama running backs, putting them in the league. Georgia, not defensive linemen, but Georgia puts a lot of NFL players in there.
We're QBU. I mean, at the current moment.
Anyone who says otherwise is just kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Like if you don't, it's like at this point, yeah, who's QBU? It's like it used to be USC back in the day. I mean, and then they used to be tailback U. I mean, Penn State back in the day was linebacker U, and like even it's like we put back-to-back number one picks and Heisman players in there, and we got Jalen Hurts drafted in the second round. Jalen Hurts don't get drafted in the second round unless he plays at Oklahoma. Like he'll probably get drafted like in the sixth round. He got a major bump playing for Riley. But yeah, but the whole thing, like you're an individual school trying to fight against an entire conference, and it's just you're trying to fight on two different levels, and it's frustrating because the SEC chanted like, look at all that we did, and then when you try to point out, well, what the hell did Arkansas contribute? What did Missouri contribute? What did Vanderbilt contribute? It's like you're fighting against this giant like nation state. It's just impossible to do it.
The only thing I can think of, like with Arkansas and Vanderbilt, has been their baseball and Arkansas going to the
but I'm talking about primarily football here.
Yeah.
But it's just now it's like you watched on Friday with like SEC Network. They had specials like already. They had like no fewer than 3 narrated like welcome to the SEC videos. Like Feinbaum did one, Ryan McGee did one.
Even the schools did them. I saw it with Mississippi State, and I saw it with Florida.
Yeah, so it was just like, man, they're rolling out the red carpet. Here we go. And it was just like I was watching SEC Network. I was like, oh my God, is this what it's like? Is this the I haven't felt like this. I was like, really? This is like we're getting all that red carpet treatment. This is amazing. This is like I feel like the Simpsons when they moved from Springfield and who was like God who oh my God, who was the evil supervillain boss that he had that he told us like, it's like, what's your dream, Homer? Well, I've always wanted to own the Dallas Cowboys. It's like, I bet they laughed at you when you said that. Like Hank Scorpio was his name. That's right, Hank Scorpio. When he went to work for Hank Scorpio. It's like, that's what it feels like. We're finally going to work for Hank Scorpio. But at the end of the episode, everyone was depressed and they went back home. And, of course, Hank Scorpio gave him a little parting gift. It's not the Dallas Cowboys, but it's a start. It was the Denver Broncos. So,
I mean, it's what I like what Red Dirt Sports says. It's pretty girl mode at the prom, or pretty girl at the prom mode activated. That's literally what happened Friday. Everybody was happy that we were joining.
I mean, they were happy for us. Like they keep ripping Texas. Texas got all the hate. Like Oklahoma, for the most part, was just like, we're happy to have Oklahoma here. They feel like they feel like they belong. This and that. All the nice things. Texas is getting ripped apart one by one.
If anything, it feels like Texas was just basically the escort of all of this. If anything,
well, Texas. It's nice of Texas to carry our bags for us on the way in the conference.
I mean, I'm not going to say a whole lot since they paid for our way there at this point. I mean, if they want to be our meat shield, more power to them. Right?
I guess so. When we officially do arrive in the Atlanta airport, hopefully they send Tennessee to carry our bags for us.
You mean our college football like camp, our training camp?
No, not our training camp. They're our farm team. Tennessee's our farm team.
That's it. Farm team.
They're a farm team. Once in a while they'll produce a player that's worth a playing. That's lucky enough to be transferred to Oklahoma. And here's another. If you want to be savage, and I mean desperate, if you really want to be savage, if I'm Riley, I get on the phone and talk to some notable players from the Big 12. Hey, Deuce Vaughn, you still want to hang out there? We might got a spot for you.
Oh, I would too. I would absolutely
call up some Iowa State players. Like, hey, we could use an extra tight end. Why don't you come on over and play in the SEC? I think you do well. It's like you just want to get sad. Like Texas would definitely do that. Just pick apart like all first team Big 12 guys one by one. Oh, it would be vicious. Just absolutely vicious.
I think Riley should. I absolutely think he should. And on the flip side of it, though, I mean, that was kind of thing I was thinking of was once the move actually happens and we actually get a schedule over there next year, start taking the players from the other teams for it. But also, too, just prepare this year. You're going to get like 20 calls against you. Not that it's any different than usual, but we're going to get called every single play.
Someone asked me today, is like, aren't you going to be worried that like they're going to be rabid and mad and all this and this and that? It's like, we're everyone's big game. Are you kidding me? Like, what's changed? Like, are the refs going to like make some calls? Probably like, it's not going to matter at the end of the day. There's like Iowa State's the one team that might be able to go toe to toe with us, like for real. Outside of Texas is going to be interesting because God knows what they're going to be like this year. But
well, I'm just going to say though too, it's like you're pretty much like bringing like a whole lot of new coaches from Texas though too. Besides just Sark though, like
Sark's the savior.
Yeah, like half of the new coaches, came from like Alabama, from what I understood.
Well, it's because that's Nick Saban's school of rehabilitating coaches. He hasn't figured out Mike Stoops yet, but
well, he brought Flood with him, and Flood is not doing well on the recruiting trail for offensive linemen, so it's not a good start. So we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, the only game that concerns me, and it's always a trap game, is Kansas State. That's
not going to be a trap. That's not going to be.
Not this year. No, not at all.
Think so?
They're coming for blood.
A trap game insinuates that you're not aware of this game. You don't lose 2 years in a row, and it's still a trap game. Like that's not going to be a trap game at all. Like the game that you want to circle is going to Baylor because Dave Aranda, keeps me up at night. Because he that guy knows how to coach D line and can make, if there's one guy who drove Riley and Beadbo insane by screwing with his GT counter, it was Dave Aranda. So prepare yourselves for that. Baylor is going to be an interesting because I've said before and I'll say again, I don't care if they burn that school to the ground. I wish nothing but ill will towards the Baylor Bears, and I hope they
I hope a meteor falls on the school. I hate that school.
I hope they have a wonderful time in the Sun Belt Conference or wherever it is they end up. Because as far as I'm concerned, they shouldn't be a Power 5 program ever.
They politic their way in, and what they don't realize is, and I want to circle back to Kansas State in a sec, but they don't realize that the reason why they're not being picked up is they have baggage. Nobody wants to pick them up because of the Art Briles situation, and if you're really going back a little bit of the basketball scandal, that really left a bad taste in people's mouth.
Well, it's not even just that. It's because like everyone talks about like the Pac-12, like people talk about the Pac-12 like, and this is a problem for TCU. Pac-12 does not want to pick up religious-based schools. They just don't. That's not what they are. We talk about the Big Ten with academics. Pac-12 wants not. They're about academics, but they don't want religious schools. Super duper liberal over the Pac-12. Whichever like it or fair or not, whatever. Like they do not want to. Those cultures clash too much. So, but I don't blame Pac-12 for not wanting Baylor or TCU. It's like I wouldn't want to do that either because. The problem is like you've had, the Arizona schools weren't happy. That was obviously, you got like back to Big 12. Those were teams they could have poached. Like you get on the phone to go get the Arizona schools. It opens up the door for recruiting even more in that state because we've gotten 2 big time football players out of that state in recent years, and Mark Andrews and Spencer Rattler. So, Arizona's been a nice little like hidden gem for us. It's like, it's not a pipeline yet. But you get like a starting tight end of the NFL and a future first-round draft pick at quarterback. Arizona's not too bad.
Unless I am completely thinking of the wrong state, how could you forget Oklahoma's best quarterback ever, Mr. Landry Jones?
Well, that's because he played in New Mexico.
It was New Mexico. Okay,
yeah,
I wasn't sure.
New Mexico.
Yeah, he played in New Mexico, sir.
Yeah,
get your Southwest states correct.
I'm sorry. They're not in our conference.
You failed geography. You disappoint me. But yeah, those Arizona schools could have fit right in. They would have been fine, but nope, didn't do that. And I don't know, like people keep pointing to Boise State and all these other teams. It's like,
that's I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that's been on the back of my mind too. Was let's hypothetically say Big 12 expansion. Okay, take OU and Texas out of it. Who do you go get? There's no name brand because there's BYU left. And as we've talked about already on the couple streams before, they don't want to play on Sundays. They're out. They're not going to recruit Houston because that's where the recruiting ground is. They're not going to bring Houston in. That's out. That means there's Cincinnati, which is probably the only name brand kind of helmet left at that point. And then who else? There's nobody else.
You're not going to get Tulsa in that mix because that is, going to be way out.
Tulsa's is like the tiniest school in Division I.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't know what to tell you. Like it's I don't want to sit here and tell you too little too late, but it kind of is. Like adding all these schools that we're talking about, whichever ones, is not going to do much. Because like I just don't like how much value are they going to add? Like I asked my buddy Eric Lopez, who I had on last week. I was like, the question you have to ask yourself is, without OU and Texas in the Big 12, what's going to be more viable to some of these teams? Is it going to be in this Big 12 conference that's like, maybe you'll make some money for a few years until that expires because they ain't renewing on, you're going to get a much smaller contract, or is the AAC going to mean more? Because, Bowlesby can, declare that ESPN wants this and that with the American and wants the Big 12 schools to move in there. But true or not, I mean, is the American Conference going to be worth more if you add some old Big 12 schools in there and create like just expand the Americans' footprint? I mean, they take pride in being like they claim to be Power 6, which is adorable, but they can reaffirm themselves as the number one like mid-major. It's not the worst thing. It's not the worst thing in the world, because if you do that, like in a 12-team playoff, you're pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot every year for your conference champion, period. Because it's going to be SEC, Big 10, Pac-12, ACC champ. Yep. And then you're going to have more than likely the American. And there's going to be another spot out there too, because like they may change that up for all we know. They may change it to 4 at this point, but no, like the American Conference champion is going to get in at this point, the way it's set up, because they said the 6 conference champions are getting in and 6 at large. Make the Americans something. Is it like, listen, unless you're West Virginia, Kansas, or somebody who's guaranteed to get a spot, you need to let go of this idea that you're going to make a good TV contract. It's
gone.
Yeah, and Bowlesby, like, brilliant move, like accusing ESPN of tampering, because that's really going to help you in negotiations down the road if you want to keep the league together.
I can be wrong. I think it's Iowa State's AD who basically even said, without OU and Texas, they're the Mountain West. Good job. Like, that didn't.
Well, no, he said that. He said that years ago. That wasn't a recent comment.
Right.
So, they knew, but they. Like, the problem is, like, having an 8-team league, you can make it work. I've tried on NCAA. You can have an 8-team league and make it work. But
don't expect the payout though to be the same.
I mean, your conference title game's done. It's out the window.
Yeah.
You're not having that like in 2022. So because like we got a waiver for 10, not a waiver for 8, so you're not going to bother doing that. So
well, and that's something too with it where I thought of the other two with Boise State. They would never bring Boise State in because it has a small market. But Sean,
nobody wants Boise. Nobody wants Boise State. I mean, listen. It was great they beat OU. What's good? Play the clip you can play the clip 24/7 on YouTube. You play the Statue of Liberty. It's great. Throw it in our face and point us and go, ha ha. I don't care. Nobody wants Boise State. They don't add anything. They really don't. People say, the Pac-12 should have Boise State. They're not going to do that because they don't fit in with what they want to be. And you can say it's stupid or not, but like, nobody wants Boise. Sorry.
Well, and that leaves me with 2 others left at that point. One of them you would be familiar with is UCF, but I don't know how big their market is.
Well, it's Orlando. Orlando is a decent-sized market. Let's not get crazy here. But the problem for UCF is that they were, like, for years ago when I was at the radio station, UCF was dead set. They wanted to be in the Big 12 more than anything. They were hammered home, Big 12, them in South Florida or them and someone else or whoever. They wanted it desperately. Live on the radio, like when they held that when they held that press conference with the Grand of Riots, it was like the saddest day I've ever seen my fellow colleagues down here because they knew it was over, because it was never going to happen. People are saying, well, UCF getting the ACC because they're going to add something of value that Florida State and Miami don't already. I mean, all due respect to the Bounce House and their success on the football field, you're not going to overtake this state back in the heyday. You could not compete with this state when it came to football powers for most of the 90s. It was kind of nuts. the state of Florida ruled college football along with Nebraska, like in the 1990s, like Miami in the early 90s, and then they took a dip like once they got to like 94. But Florida State owned this state. I grew up in this state. Florida State was huge. It's still big, but obviously not as big because, you know, both programs aren't quite where they used to be, especially Florida State. But when Florida State is humming, it is like a top 5 rivalry, period. Because there was a period where both those schools, like 10 years in a row, were both in the top 10, and they affected national championships, like for both teams and other teams. So, all due respect to UCF, like, you're never going to be that ever. So, their last shot was the Big 12. And listen, if things get nuts, if things get crazy, who knows? Maybe there is a spot that opens up. Maybe there's going to be, because we all have in our mindset like 16 is going to be the max, but who knows? But like for right now, I don't see people throw UCF out there. It's like, I can't wait UCF. It's like, I mean, maybe, but the ACC is going to want to add Notre Dame's their first priority, because they got them locked in with a giant money buyout if they have to join a conference like till 2035. Yeah. So that's not going to happen. You know,
I think the only other viable school at that point, and Gavin, I think we've talked about it, is it has no market appeal. It only has name at this point, is North Dakota State. Like, that's kind of it.
No,
at that
no,
point.
doesn't.
And that's
no,
only
doesn't.
Not even then.
No, North Dakota State. What are you talking? No.
Yeah, like, pulling in one school from the FCS at that point, and that'd be.
But there's 12 people live in North Dakota. It was like, it's not going to do anything.
And like, all 12 people would appreciate.
Yeah, but like North Dakota State is, man, I hate to break bad news to you, but nobody gives a damn.
No, I know that.
That ain't gonna add. Like, I'm not yelling at you, but like, it's just that ain't gonna add shit.
No, I'm thinking of in the ideal situation of who you have to bring in. To me, it's Cincinnati and UCF, but that's if OU and Texas are there, and then, okay, that makes it decent. It's not the ideal situation. We can't poach Arizona and Arizona State. This is kind of where we're at. And now without OU and Texas, that's you're almost scrambling to find if you want to get back to 12 or even 10 at that point.
So at the end of the day, there's going to be a spot for about 60-something teams that matter.
Yeah.
And this is the one thing I would bring up, like my little conspiracy theory here, because I don't think this is going to happen at the end of the day, long term. But if you're in a Power 5 conference now, not named the Big 12, I think this is a wake-up call for a lot of other schools. Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you that all these leagues are going to break apart. But it's time to be proactive. Because when you think of the Big Ten, I mean, the Big Ten's kind of, I don't think the Big Ten would do this, but if you were the ACC, I could easily see if the circumstances, you know, work out, the ACC could really be fractured. If the money train is good and it's there, and they're able to convince like Florida and South Carolina, you know, Clemson and Florida State come on board too, be part of the Southeastern Conference. So there's two. I think you could easily see that happening.
Florida State's been wanting in the SEC for years.
Absolutely, and Clemson would be a perfect ideal fit as well. Then you definitely want to expand your footprint in the Carolinas. You definitely want to get North Carolina, but I do think there is a partnership with like Duke and everything that's going to be really difficult to try to break apart. I don't think that's the same thing as OU and Oklahoma State, all due respect. That's more of a stronger rule. They're 8 miles apart on campuses on Tobacco Road, for crying out loud.
Right, it's like UCLA and USC.
But I could easily see the ACC potentially one day turning into the old ACC, where it's basically, you know, Virginia up. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking, like, you're going to have your Northeast Conference. You're going to have, like, Syracuse and, you know, West Virginia and Virginia Tech and all that stuff. It's going to, like, consolidate into, like, those Northeast schools. And then the SEC could swallow up some of the Southern ACC schools. It's possible. With the Pac-12, I mean, they could do this whole big merger with the Big Ten. Though that's a possibility. But I think you gotta be careful about is that I look at like the Wake Forest of the world and so forth. I look at the Oregon States. I look at some schools that like, okay, what value do you really bring to the party at the end of the day?
South Carolina.
South Carolina's fine.
You think they're fine?
The SEC, listen, they are not kicking people out. One person, like, I was listening to Feinbaum a lot last week, and someone's like, you know what you do if you kick out Vanderbilt, and they hung up on him immediately. Like, they don't tolerate that garbage. Like, no one's kicking Vanderbilt out or anything like that. So anyone who suggests, oh, if you get rid of Vanderbilt, like, that's never happening. But no, but like, there's this idea that people are thinking that one day we could have two mega conferences, and one mega conference has their playoff, the other mega conference has their playoff, and you have a college Super Bowl. I would not be against that. I think that'd be fun.
It'd be the top 64 teams, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like, listen, people have been talking about this for years, like for the a super league, college super league, and people are shocked that it might actually happen. I mean, it's been talked about forever. Like the Super League stuff was going on back in like 2010-ish, 2011.
Yeah.
The super conferences are not an original idea either. They were talked about like back in the 80s and early 90s. So like, it's just that the environment wasn't there. The landscape wasn't there. Like there was a brief period where they were trying to work out the Big 8 and Southwest Conference to have like a partnership, but not like a one conference, but they were trying to have a TV partnership where the remaining 8 Southwest schools and the Big 8 schools would work together, which eventually became the Big 12, what it used to be back in the day. But like I think it's like, I'm not saying this is going to happen like right away or anything, but like I think it's a wake up call to some of these schools that think they're safe in some of these Power 5 conferences that are not called the SEC. I mean, I don't know all the relationships or who's in charge or who has the money or anything, but it's like, just be careful. I'm just looking at the ACC and the Pac-12. Like Oregon's more valuable than Oregon State. Washington's more valuable than Washington State.
Well, and that's something you mentioned too, like with those teams and stuff. My buddy Steve, he sent me his stuff about K-State, and he was mentioning in his message, like, they don't know where K-State's going. Like, if they're going to be honest, they're like, their golden years from 97 to 03 or even 2012 is kind of gone at this point. And that he said the big thing is they feel like if they would have won that national title in 98 or even had the chance to beat up on Notre Dame in 2012, the narrative would have been different with it.
I don't really think it would, though, honestly.
You don't think so?
Not as honestly, no. Like BYU has a national title, so I mean Baylor basketball has a national championship. I don't like it's look, success on the field and court is great. Like you look at UCF, look at all the success they have. Doesn't matter. Boise State beat Oklahoma Festival. It doesn't really matter that much.
Well, and he didn't mention this, but I saw it in another thread on it where he was another individual said K-State's the more popular school in Kansas because they're the big ag school with it, but they also have like the major metropolitan outside of OU in Texas for TV
who's the most popular Kansas school in the country? Kansas.
Ooh, that's a hard narrative for that one.
I mean, tell me I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong at all.
So, on a national level, when you think Kansas and sports, you think Jayhawks first. Fair or not, you think Jayhawks basketball,
and it's because of basketball. Yeah,
but it's just I've always said this. Like people say, what makes a blue blood? What's a blue blood? This is like, and I will hammer this home to the end of the day. Listen, we can say there's 5 or 8 or whatever. If you were good and if you were really good in the 1970s, you're a blue blood. I will hammer that home to the end of time. If you because that's when television got a little bit bigger. If you were an elite football program that was on television in the 1970s on that ABC game of the week, you're a blue blood. USC, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Texas. Those and to some extent Penn State, those programs were on national television in the 70s more than anyone. Like you try to find old TV games for Oklahoma. What are the 2 games you always find? OU Texas, OU Nebraska. Or Oklahoma goes to Ohio State. Guess what? So, like, people say, "Oh, who's a blue blood?" People try to say Clemson's a blue blood. No, they're not. Clemson's new money. Like, Clemson's on a little run. Listen. If Clemson's still good 50 years from now, we'll talk. We'll have that conversation. Clemson ain't no blue blood. Like, you could put tiers of programs and where they're at and success or whatever, but when it comes to like what drives money, like that's why Joe C was pissed off about the OU Nebraska game because it was tailor-made for primetime television.
And he worked 10 years on that deal. Like, I'd be a little bitter too if I was Don Castiglione at this point. Like,
because some junior executive at Fox said, "Let's make noon our highlighted game."
And it's biting them in the ass right now.
If I'm Fox, I have to wonder if I stick with college football. I'm serious.
I would say no. It's not even a priority anyway.
I listen. I think there's also a chance for the playoff. They want to make this a bidding war because that's another reason. Like that, if we're talking about like people saying the 12-team playoff may not happen, it's going to happen, but they're going to open up to bidding because they want Fox involved. But man, losing OU in Texas as soon as after this year, you have the Big Ten and the Pac-12, and that's it.
Oh yeah, I talked about this with Gavin.
And then you hire Bob Stoops to be your guy, and now you're not going to have Oklahoma football games anymore.
Right, like that's what I was mentioning. I talked about this with Gavin, and it was with OU and Texas leaving, who is Fox's big brand? It's Ohio State, and they've been pretty vocal of, we're kind of pissed that we're playing at 11 a.m. games.
You're playing Oregon at 11 a.m. Central Time. Like, that's great. They're loving that. Yeah. And recruits love to get up early and go see a football game on a Saturday after they played the night before. Loving that, guys.
I mean, I'm going to just ask this, though, too. When is the last time that Ohio State and Michigan have ever played a night game?
They don't.
They
don't play night games in November in the Big Ten. It's a thing.
I know. And it's like, I'm just going to say this, like, if I'm just thinking back to 2016, like when Ohio State and Michigan played against each other, too. I felt like that should have been a primetime game instead of it being like a 11 a.m. kickoff.
It gets a bit nippy up in those parts in November. They don't like to play when it's dark.
I'm just saying, if I'm a fan at that point, though, too, I'm like,
But they're all this isn't like they're forcing us to play at this time. This is like, no, they're mandating we do not play games at night. And they're like, all right. So there's a reason you see Ohio State, Michigan kick off at noon a lot. There's a reason, because that's what they want. And plus, it's a holiday weekend anyway, and most people are at home if they're not like at Black Friday, like losing their damn minds, when all the best deals are on the internet. You could just stay at home and do that.
At this point, yeah.
Or I can go to Walmart and get like all these great Black Friday deals that are intentionally set up to be Black Friday deals. Yeah, but anyway, that's a whole nother rant I could go on. But
and you're mentioning like the 12 a.m. or the 12 p.m. kickoffs, and that makes me think. And in all seriousness, going with the OSU thing for a moment, for Oklahoma State, not Ohio State, I'm trying to rack my brain historically wise. When was the last time Oklahoma State actually beat OU and it wasn't a fluke? So things like the re-kick, when OU was devastated with injuries in 2011. When was that?
Oh, yeah, hang on. Like 2011 wasn't a fluke. They whooped their ass.
No, yeah. I mean, 2011 was not
I love Ryan Broyles. He would have made a difference, but okay. They were going to whoop our ass. It happened. Like
I would say 2011 is a fluke because we were missing so many players. Like there was no.
No.
Listen, there's one thing I'm not going to do. I'm not going to play I'm not going to be a Florida Gator here and say we played our last game like the last week. We got our asses whooped, and that's just the way it ended up. Like the fluke was a certain someone like taking a punt return back after we were kicked, which is I was before all this madness happened. My plan was to make a video of like the top 10 plays you wish you could take back for Oklahoma football. And like,
oh my goodness.
I wrote down a list and I came up with a bunch. Some you wouldn't even think would matter, That there's the obvious ones, but I need to pull up that list again and like get
You
like
should
that's
make
gonna.
that video.
Well, no, like now
Actually-
that we've calmed down, I have some time in August to make that content. But I would like to thank OU and Texas for joining the SEC because the last 10 days have made July my most profitable month on YouTube. Thank you, Oklahoma, Texas. My most profitable month ever on YouTube was thanks to you. Yes.
Yeah.
I surpassed it by $400. Thank you very much. Very, very happy. You guys are awesome. And I have a feeling I'm going to be making close to that and more as the season goes on. Yes. Oh, it's going to be a good. Oh, and next year, with SEC people, it's going to skyrockets at night, afternoon delight. It's going to be fantastic.
Speaking of SEC with it, that's something I wanted to bring up with you, with both of y'all. That was kind of the first thing was after all the welcomes and stuff. You know what I've seen the most that's kind of been on the message boards and on Twitter and everything was the SEC fans saying, okay, well, OU is here now. Who was the better wishbone coach, Bear Bryant or Barrett Switzer?
Oh, we're going to fight. We're going to fight.
We're going to
we're going to fight because that is a game that should have happened in the 70s, but we never got it. We never got that game. We never got an Oklahoma, Alabama Orange Bowl or Sugar Bowl. We should have. But
was there
Switzer.
any politics with it?
Well, again, we have old traditions. Big 8 champ goes to the orange. SEC champ tends to go to the sugar. It's not like Alabama hasn't played at the Orange Bowl before, so let's not say that they couldn't do it. They could have easily accepted that, but Penn State was undefeated, so beating undefeated Penn State in 1978, would have been interesting because Billy Sims doesn't fumble against Nebraska. And we still would have won the Big 8, like based on how things turned out, because Nebraska got upset by Missouri. We pounded Oklahoma State. I do kind of wonder who our opponent would have been. I do have to wonder. We could have been we could have played Penn State in 78.
Yeah.
78, 79. So if Sims holds onto the ball and they go in to score and take the lead, win the game, I think they play. I think Penn State comes down to the Orange Bowl. It's very possible, but anyway. But this whole talk about Bear Bryant being the better wishbone quarterback. Oh, we're gonna have. Well, we're gonna have to. We're listen, Joe Castiglione. We're gonna have a meeting. we're gonna. It's like we had Billy Sims, Joe Washington, J.C. Watts. Thomas Lott. Steve Davis, Jack Milgen. Well, listen, we are not gonna. No.
Who do you think legitimately on Bama's side that they have that would be even equal in that argument at that point?
I have no idea. I don't know Bama's 70s players.
That's me.
I don't. No, I'm not saying it to be me. I really can't. I mean, I know a few. Obviously, I know they got the whole. They have 4 quarterbacks who won Super Bowls thing, which is adorable. But I don't know Bama's 70s players that well. I just really don't. It's never been a thing I've had to know because, maybe I'll look some players. I'm sure there'll be more than enough Bama fans down the road who will educate me on that. But
yeah.
But let me just. These are the list of. These are the list of like plays. How many? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have 15 plays, which I'm considering doing all of them. Ooh. I don't know how long the video say. It's like I was going to call it the top 10 one play changes in OU football history. That's just like a working title. And I was going to make it similar to like my Oklahoma State video I made a few years back.
Can we try to guess some of them?
I mean, come on. If you already know, I'll just go down the list. Oregon 2006, which is there's a lot of plays.
Kick.
Boise, obviously. 84 Texas.
Yep.
With the Keith Stanberry intercepted the ball in the end zone. You son of a bitch.
My dad is still pissed off about that game.
Yeah, that was an interception.
Keith Stanberry intercepted that pass. We should have won that game. 15 time my ass. I threw this one in there. does it like now? I'm trying to pick ones that actually really did would have changed the game. Period. Ended the game for Oklahoma. I put the squib on there. Does it now? Having a 3-score lead changes everything from having a 2-score lead. Do we win the game at the end of the day? I don't know. But going into halftime with a 3-score lead is bigger than.
It's a mental game.
If I may, Sean, and this was something I want to reiterate though too. It was that OU was basically like the better first half team, but Georgia was always been more better when it was in the second half. To begin with, in that sort of standpoint, and I don't know. I felt like the squib. It was just sort of like just one little domino though, and everything, but that little domino just sort of gave them that kickstart, if anything.
We would have beat Bama.
Anyway, in 1967 versus Texas, our kicker missed 4 field goals. He makes 1. We win the game. We're undefeated that year and win the national championship.
Oh, so Bama style.
Yeah, well, like Chuck Fairbanks wins a natty. Speaking of Chuck Fairbanks winning a natty, a referee throws a flag on clipping for that Rodgers punt return touchdown like early in the game. You take a touchdown off the board for Nebraska, we probably go on to win that game. So speaking of Chuck Fairbanks and not getting a natty, I mentioned Billy Sims fumbling the ball on the 3-yard line in 78. This one's interesting. Actually, let me get back to that one. 1957, Notre Dame breaks our streak. One play goes differently here or there. We keep the streak alive for a little bit longer. 1958 against Texas. Bud Wilkinson was very big. He said, we need to have the 2-point conversion. Let's make it happen. First year it's implemented. Texas beats us with a 2-point conversion in 1958. Thanks, Bud.
Monkey paw.
This one's interesting because it opens like a Pandora's box. 1985 home game against Miami. What if Troy Aikman doesn't break his leg?
Ooh, I thought about that one for a while too.
If Troy doesn't break his leg, now Switzer was adamant about playing like a 2 QB system with him and with Troy and Jamel Holloway. So Troy might end up transferring anyway. I'm sure if you asked him, he would probably say I would have left regardless. But Keith Jackson was always quoted as saying, when Troy Aikman broke his leg, I cried that day. Because that was the one guy. That was the one guy who would have threw him the football.
Yeah, I think that's in the Wishbone book. I could be wrong, but I think that's at the end of the Wishbone book where they actually mention like Holloway versus Aikman.
Because Barry wanted to use both because Holloway was so talented. Yeah. Let's see here. 05, the phantom fake touchdown in Lubbock.
God,
just like he's down at the 1. He just moves it over and like those crooked, all those. Listen, those refs were on the take completely because they were calling touchdowns or drop passes at the end zone. They were on the take completely. We've already talked about the repunt versus Oklahoma State. Bradford doesn't injure his shoulder against BYU.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe if Bradford stays healthy, I'm not going to sit here and tell you we win a natty or anything because our offense was not, our O-line was not good enough and everything. But I'm going to sit here and tell you we win double-digit games that year. We go to a BCS game.
Like, we might win Stanford for sure.
I mean, I don't think we win the Big 12, maybe. But you know what? Maybe we do play for the Big 12 because the way that game, I was at that game. If Bradford was QB, maybe like I'm telling you, maybe we might. Our defense was so good that year. We might beat Texas in that game.
Okay, Sean, I want to ask you something real quick. DeMarco Murray versus against Missouri in 2008.
I was about to say that. I was about to say that next. God damn it.
Okay.
That one hurts more because you were actually at that natty.
Yeah, and I just like they were. DeMarco leaps over that line. Anyway, but here's one that I think nobody's gonna mention because 2001 Oklahoma State, and I know the play.
Oh gosh,
yeah. 2001 Oklahoma State. I know the exact play on that drive where they score a touchdown. few plays earlier in that game, Roy Williams drops a pick that would have ended it.
Oh yes.
If Roy picks off that pass, it's over, and we're playing Colorado for the Big 12 championship.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we beat Colorado is another question because our offense was done.
Yeah,
our offense was just done. So I don't know if we beat Colorado. I don't know if we beat Colorado, but because Colorado was still good, Colorado was still Colorado.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, like I went back and watched that drive like a few years back. I saw Roy drop because I didn't see that game live because I was in the Army and I was just moving into barracks and stuff and everything. But I remember finally
that was like what 3 months after 9/11, right?
Yeah, and it's like, and that was the year Roy made the big play against Texas that everyone remembers. But like, he makes that pick, we beat them that day, and it's like, oh, the game is over. We take a knee and we squeak out a win. Oh, if he just holds on to that ball, if he just like, because it was like boom, it was like a bang bang, like could have gotten it. But yeah, DeMarco just tearing his quad on an opening kickoff. Just like kidnap him and lock him in a broom closet for about 3 hours. He'll be fine. Let's let him out afterwards. But you know what? He's making up for it. He's doing really good on the recruiting trail. We're gonna have
absolutely.
Like we're gonna get like 2 or 3 really good backs for next year. So
and that's something. Oh, go ahead, Gavin. Go ahead.
Okay, there was this. Well, okay, I'm just gonna go back. I'm just gonna go back to like 2011. I'm just trying to remember. Basically, like OU has the lead against Baylor at this one point and everything, and I guess they were going down on the drive and everything. And I guess like Baylor.
We were gonna go for 2. We were gonna go for 2 to take the lead, but Adam Shed or whatever like had a false start, and we kicked the extra point. But Bob was going for 2 to take the lead that night.
Yeah, but I was thinking though too, like Baylor did not like have any timeouts, and you basically gave them a free timeout on that game-winning drive, if I'm not mistaken.
Look, I don't remember much outside of the end of that game that basically won Griffin the Heisman Trophy that night. That like, if you make a big play in a game that matters, and people remember it.
Actually, believe it or not, hang on. Do we have like a share screen or anything like that here? I don't know if we could work or not though on that.
I don't have enough experience with this particularly for it, so I mean I can add this particular part to the stream with it. Yeah.
There you go. Basically, it was.
I don't want to watch that. I really don't want to watch this right now. Listen, I'm gonna have to edit a lot of stuff. Okay, I really.
Yeah, this was basically the drive. This was sort of the drive right here that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I'm well aware.
Yeah, it was from what I remember, like right about here, and he basically. If I was like
Lisa, you can actually pinpoint the moment where his heart rips in half.
Yeah, it's like right here. He calls a timeout right here, and I'm like, "What the hell are you doing? You're basically giving them free time and all that. You know, you're going under a 2-minute right here. It's like, why would you give him a timeout?"
I want to. For yours, Sean, is it specifically wins and losses for your list, or is it just losses for, and is it plays? Because I have 2 even I think would be on that list.
I don't know. I mean, listen, I was going to try to keep it to 10, and I want it to be like, primarily it's going to be losses. Wins you can do obviously, but like, it's hard to do butterfly effect. It's really hard to do butterfly effect moments because you could drive home a point easier if it's like, if this one thing doesn't happen, we win. Boom. End of story. Roy Williams intercepts pass. Over. Keith Stanberry, if the referee says interception, the game is over. Like, there's no, what if there's no like butterfly effect. You have to like, forecast what would happen next. So DeMarco playing against Florida obviously makes a difference. Do we win the game? There's no guarantee we win it. I mean, obviously we're confident we do because Chris Brown was able to run the ball somewhat effectively in between the 20s, but you needed to have like that dynamic athlete down there in the red zone with DeMarco. Like you take away that, it's oh God, who was their speed when Percy Harvin was playing not 100%, but again, he was effective enough, especially on that one big play deep in their own territory. He made a difference. You take away Percy Harvin, it's like that's a different ball game as well.
I wanted to bring up something though too, Sean, and I wanted to get your input. I think it was like the first play of the game, that huge hit against who was our receiver then?
It was Broyles, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Broyles. It wasn't Broyles. It was.
What? Are you talking about Manny Johnson?
Yeah, Manny Johnson when he got leveled out.
That would have without question been a flag thrown for targeting, and everyone.
Exactly.
Everyone 5,000 people around me threw their arms up. Like, how the hell is that not a personal foul? But like, not in the year of our Lord 2009.
Well, here's the thing. But here's the other thing. I wasn't going to really go into the issue of targeting. I really thought, if anything, it would have been DPI, if anything.
Yeah, I think that we were throwing our hands up regardless, saying, "Why is this not a flag?" But it wasn't, and that's how it went. Yeah, they set the tone there. Like we didn't have a lot of deep pass plays in that game. It was like short. It was a short and medium, and it was running the football. And Gresham was all due respect to our receivers, Gresham was the only legit NFL threat we had for catching the football. And Gresham could have been MVP of that game if we end up winning it, but. Anyway,
and I mean that's something I was thinking of, Sean. With it,
I'm looking forward to getting people all depressed for the season starts. People are going to yell at me when I make that video. It's like,
and that's why I was asking you because I was thinking like, even though we won the game, if Justin Blackmon drops that ball before the Sugar Bowl, where do we go to from there? Does that deflate a little bit of the program? Does that get Bob out a little bit earlier than when he retired? Because he even said he wanted to retire earlier than he wanted to. Does that speed it up? Who knows? That's that butterfly effect. But there's also, too, like the 2011 game against Texas Tech where the weather delay, does that affect everything? Does that go on the list? Or when they throw the flag against the Schooner?
We didn't have just one weather delay with Texas Tech. We've had two weather delays with Texas Tech. In
2013, I believe, was the other weather delay.
That was a fun football game, damn it. You know what? Like, you want to go back and watch a fun win? That was fun. That ended up on like Fox Business or Fox
it was News on Fox Business. Yeah,
it was so weird.
No, was that? No,
Baker was the Tech.
That was Baker, wasn't it?
Baker was with Tech at the time.
No, Baker was healthy and standing on the sideline watching the game because they put Webb in there.
Well, that was the one in Norman, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, I have a screenshot of Baker just kind of standing there, holding. It's like, I'm healthy and I'm not playing. This sucks.
And
that was kind of the moment he made up his mind. I'm just coming here. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just coming here.
Yeah, because 2014 he walked on. Okay, yeah, I was at that game. That was a fun one. That one I actually enjoyed. That was a nice little rainy game.
Trey Miller got hurt and knocked out for the rest of the year, which sucked. But
that was fun, though. You're right. But what about then if I had the 2011 one, what about the flag against the Schooner, too? That changes the momentum the entire game, too.
Against Washington, in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got stuck and just – anyway. Yeah, I had that one written down, but it's like that was – I don't know. There's no guarantee they win anyway. Like, if OU wins that game, Barry Switzer is like pounding his chest and they should be national champs, and rightfully so because he got – on that game against Texas with the Stanberry. Like, that's kind of the one I would like. I would more point to the one in the Cotton Bowl was Stanberry like getting screwed out of the pick more than that.
Okay.
Because if you have that win in your back pocket and you go into that Orange Bowl, maybe you have a different mindset and you still win regardless of how that game turned out. So I don't know.
Okay, I want to go back to this '07 and everything else, so too.
I would really like to, guys, but I actually do got to get going. Here.
That's fine. That's actually if you hold on for like 2 minutes, we got we're already at 1 hour and 34 minutes. So I think this is actually something we can continue later on, though. Sean and Gavin, I do want to appreciate y'all coming on. I think we're in the season now. It's August 1st, and I believe two-a-days start here very, very, very soon. Correct?
Oh,
this
nice.
week, right? This week, right? Or is it next week?
Yeah, I really actually do got to go. Like now.
Okay, buddy. That's fine.
Right,
That's fine.
yeah.
We'll see you. See you in about a week. All right, bye.
Bye. See ya.
All right, I think two-a-days start here very, very, very soon. And gosh, I'm trying to remember the exact date for it if they haven't started the workouts and stuff already. So we're here. It's August, and I mean everything pertaining and stuff. We're gonna be having we're gonna have football here in about a month, which is insane to think about with it. So
oh, definitely. I mean, I'm just gonna say this though too. It's gonna be a very long and fun ride for the most part though too. And I think it's gonna be very, very funny if the OU does win the national title and everything, and after all of this issue with the Big 12, and all that, it's just gonna be like, yeah, it's sort of a weird way of ending it, if anything.
I'd say I would say if anything, OU and Texas need to go to the title game, make it even more awkward if they're leaving by next year. But
I just don't.
Lucky bot.
Yeah, the problem is that like if OU, the problem is I just don't see Texas even going into that 14 playoff this year. I just don't. Problem is that the best player right now is probably their running back over at Texas right now. I can't remember his name at the top of my head. I think it was like Robinson.
Yeah, but weirder things have happened though.
Yeah,
you never know.
I mean, the problem is, it's kind of like hard right now because, like, it's mostly like looking at it from right now, like Ohio State, Clemson, OU, and I would say maybe Georgia as well, along with Bama. At this point, that's kind of the only ones that are really in contention for the title right now. I just don't see Texas really being.
I don't think they're in it for the title run, but I think they're in it for the Big 12 championship run. I think they're along with Iowa State because who else is there at this point? There's really nobody else.
I mean, it's just those three, but I just think Iowa State should be at 2 and Texas at 3.
I totally think that. I think that too. So, but that's
because it's like I don't know. Like I think it was like from the PFF. I think that basically had Texas at 2. It's like I just don't see it. I mean, look.
No, I don't see him at the.
It's like I don't see that as a potential.
Not at all.
Threat and everything else though too. I've just kind of look at it to where I think if anything, like if OU probably wins another Big 12, just from the whole look of it standpoint. I mean, I've been looking at all the award watch lists right now, and by goodness sakes, I have never seen this much watch lists, I've seen in a long, long time.
Oh yeah, they're absolutely on every single list at this point. I mean, it's the most complete team since 2017, even with Mike Stoops as defensive coordinator. Now, that all being said, hold those thoughts though for 2 weeks. We're already running at 1 hour and 38 minutes with it, and I want to make sure we cover it in the season preview and everything like that. So, that all being said, guys, I want to thank Gavin. I want to thank you for coming on again as usual. Thank everybody for all 2 or 3 of you who watch. Hey, every bit of eyeballs count, so I appreciate it very much. Gavin appreciates it as well. We're going to be streaming next Sunday again. We're going to take a quick break from talking about the OU going to the SEC stuff because I kind of want to do a part 3 to this live stream about kind of what we're looking forward to for who do we want to play? Like, what things are we looking forward to debate-wise? What about players, recruiting? I kind of want to get into that, but we're going to take a quick break from that. That could be in about 2 weeks because next week, barring everything goes according to plan, we're going to have the 2019 Oklahoma Sooners #1 fan, my dad actually, on to talk about kind of about the old days, what he's looking forward to on the season, answer some questions, and talk about just some story stuff that he experienced, such as like the 71 Nebraska game, OU Texas from the 80s and the 90s, Switzer and Wishbone, and everything like that. So that should be a fun thing to do, just bringing in some of the old guard just to talk about all the old stories and everything like that. So that all being said, again, guys, thank you all for joining. Just make sure, continue to wear a mask. That Delta strain is absolutely everywhere. I think everywhere in Oklahoma is just red at this point, guys. Even if you haven't got the vaccine, get the vaccine, guys. And if you haven't got the vaccine, consider getting the vaccine because it protects the people around you. And then, of course, it's something that I started, and I think I want to end always live streams this way as a little positive. Remember just to take care of our planet, guys. Recycle. Do as best as you can with it. We only have one planet, and I think I've become more conscious of everything, so of just what's going around. So yeah, just try to do your best a little bit every day. So Gavin, do you have any final words?
Like I said, love your neighbor and everything, and try and take care of your families and everything. That's all I got to say.
Perfect, guys. So we're going to end this stream. So I'll see everybody next week. Thanks for joining, guys. Boomer Sooner, and have a good night.
Peace.